Well, let's continue our focus on the upcoming local government elections. A special meeting of the IEC's Party Liaison Committee took place this morning. It follows an emergency meeting by the Commission over the weekend to discuss the Constitutional Court order that was handed down last week, Friday, dismissing the application to postpone the election. Joining us now, IEC CEO Sy Mamabolo. Mr. Mamabolo, good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. The issue of candidate registrations seemed to be quite a contentious one, even in the lead up to the process of this case being heard by the Constitutional Court. Let's talk about the reopening of this process. What does it effectively mean, and how long would parties have the opportunity to submit candidate lists this time around?
No, thanks, and good evening, Kathy. Let's go one step back. The Commission announced a general voter registration weekend for the 18th and 19th of September. Now, that registration weekend will afford citizens an opportunity to either register or to re-register in new voting districts and new wards. Now, once you are registered, whether you've changed registration or you are a new voter, that fact of registration affords you an opportunity to contest an election. So there's that nexus between the general voter registration effort and the ability to vindicate one's Section 19 rights by way of candidature for a legislative election, which is why the Commission came to the conclusion that it is reasonably necessary to reopen nominations in the light of the voter registration weekend, which has been basically ordered by the Constitutional Court.
Between the voter registration weekend and the elections are 6 weeks. So when exactly would you be hoping to have the process of the candidate nominations, and how long would that window be open for?
Yes, we're going to be amending the election timetable, but it will be a highly truncated timetable because, as you correctly observed, we do not have a lot of time between the registration weekend to the 27th until the 1st of November. So the minister will proclaim the election in terms of the court order on the 20th. And on the 21st, the candidate nomination process will close. So there isn't really much time because of the truncated nature of the timetable that we are proposing.
What impact is this going to have on the IEC in terms of the work that needs to be done to collate all of these different ballot papers ultimately that will have to be given to voters on the day of elections? Are you confident that you're going to have an error-free process, already looking at the number of candidates, even just by way of parties, independent candidates that are set to contest this election?
Well, for us to deliver this election on the dates prescribed is going to take a Herculean effort. And the ballot production process in particular is going to be more complicated than has hitherto been the case. So we are alive to that difficulty. We are putting a project management capacity precisely to deal with the enormity of the task, because we've got to print our estimation at the moment about 78 million ballots, and which are distributed in configurations of about 4,900. So you can see that we have to produce these ballots, package them per VG, ensure that they're delivered to the right wards in correct quantities. So we're going to need a very slick project management capability to deliver on that ballot production exercise, without which a free and fair election would essentially be vitiated.
One of the things that has been previously raised about the system, and several political parties seem to raise this concern, was that there were some technical glitches even prior to people missing the deadline that they experienced. This time around, that system is going to have to be completely efficient, because if there are yet more complaints about people being unable to register some of their candidates, it again calls into question the credibility of the kind of election we can hold.
No, you're perfectly right that the system has to function optimally. But let's go one step back again. The system was used for the first time in 2016 for the local government elections we had in 2016. It was used again in 2019, as was the case in the present circumstances. And in those two previous elections, we have not had the type of complaints that have been made on this occasion. We've looked at the performance of the system on the day, and our information is that there was no fundamental performance issues related to the system. The reality is that things appear to have been pressurized at the end, and people just did not have enough time to complete the process.
The Musaneka report has been, I suppose, a good tool for the IEC, because in many ways it highlights what opposition parties and what political parties, I think, just across the board, would be looking at the markers of the quality of election that the IEC can deliver. So in light of that, are there different ways in which the IEC is going to be registering individuals during this last voter registration drive?
Well, in terms of the registration weekend, we have acquired 40,000 units of what we call the voter management device. It will be used for the first time on the 18th and 19th of September. We'll be able to register a voter, confirm their address, capture the address at the point of interface with the voter, and by the time the voter leaves the registration station, we would have checked whether they are eligible, having done a national population register check. So it's a new ball game, and we hope that it will give us the efficiencies that we need, given the truncated timelines within which we are working.
And for people who could well say, I'm unable to go and register, but I would like to, but maybe I'm recovering from COVID-19, or for whatever reasons I'm unable to reach the station, does the IEC have any kind of plan for that?
Yes, indeed we do. In terms of our voter registration regulations, you can cause a form to be completed. We call it an RC2 form, deliver it to our office, and our officials will be able to visit to administer that registration.
In terms of the election, you've spoken today about the extended period for which you are going to possibly need to run elections, especially the special votes that take place. From your discussions within the IEC, how long are we expecting this election cycle to be? So are we likely to vote over a number of days, maybe 3-4 days, which will be different to what we have before?
At the moment, we have enough resources, financial and otherwise, for 2 days of special votes. In other words, the normal election day will be preceded by 2 days of special voting. We have been in discussions with National Treasury about adding an additional day of special votes. Those discussions have not concluded, but they are looking at it, and we may have an outcome in the not too distant future. So it may well be that we have a third day of special votes if resources come our way.
Political parties are going to want to go into election mode in full gear right now. We've already heard some saying that they're going to be holding rallies, etc. What does that mean for the IEC in the context of these lockdown regulations? Because on the one hand, there's the electoral code to which, you know, you have to look at and to which you are bound, and at the same time, the prevailing conditions of COVID-19.
No, look, I think we want political parties to campaign, because that's the essence of democracy. That's the essence of electoral contest. And we believe they must do so within the parameters of the law of the land. And we hope that they'll be permitted to have at least increased numbers of people at their events. And to that extent, we have engaged with the Minister of COGTA, and necessary decisions will then have to be made about the extent to which there may or may not be the relaxation of the regulations to allow for campaigning. But it does also mean that given the prevailing circumstances, strategies may have to be tweaked by political parties to ensure that they embrace other methods of campaigning. These are extraordinary circumstances, and they may call for, on the side of political parties, to consider what may not be customary models of campaigning that they are accustomed to.
Sy Mamabolo is the CEO of the IEC. Thank you so much for your time tonight.